Some days we keep on rolling, and some days we wanna fold in, and you wanna cash out, and you wanna double down. Real talk, real numbers, real life.
Welcome back to Inspired or Acquired. This is the podcast where we interview real business owners, talk real numbers, and ask them whether or not they would sell their business. We have a great guest today. Jordan Evans is coming to us from California. He took over a family business and he's since bought a few more companies in the space and spun off a side business as well. So he has an awesome, interesting story to tell, and we're excited to have him on. So Jordan, how are you?
I'm caffeinated and excited to be here.
Awesome. And joined, as always, by my co-host, Clint Fiore from Bison Business out of Texas. So, Clint, how are you?
Always happy to be here, Patrick. And I've been excited to have this conversation with Jordan. I think this is going to be a fun episode.
Yeah. So, Jordan, let's start with just high level, what does your business do and who are your customers? And then we'll dive into the numbers.
We are a services business through and through. And we work with languages and cultures, and we are the connection between any point of communication that goes across that linguistic barrier. It's a translation, interpretation, localization services company called Language Network. And the spinoff that you alluded to is Hire Globo, and we're a global staffing, recruiting, payroll company. And if we get to it this episode, it was a natural spinoff from our roll-up, which is Language Network.
So real quick, Language Network. Let's talk about that one. First off, was this your family business, or how did this one get going, or how did you get into this one?
Sure. I tripped and fell into this, which I'm so grateful for. Language Network was started by my mom in the 80s as an immigrant to the U.S. Speaking Spanish. She was an interpreter in the greater Los Angeles area. And when I say the wild, wild west back then, this industry was less recognized, less professionalized. It was really a matter of find a bilingual person and throw them in the mix so that the court could proceed, that the attorneys could speak with their client, that the doctor could communicate with the patient. But since then, we've made progress as an industry. Actually, what I like to share with everyone is that we're larger than the global music industry, or the biggest little industry nobody's heard of, which is language services. Domestically in the United States, it touches everything, healthcare, government, social services, education. And that's the beautiful thing about the US is we don't have an official language. So mom started it, very diverse LA, fertile ground to grow the company. It was around 2016 that I had a life moment that pushed me into the entrepreneurial pool. I got fired, and I'm grateful for that. I was in software startups before joining this service company, and mom and dad at that point, 30-something years running Language Network, had no exit strategy, had no plan, and I saw an opportunity to help them, and I decided to actually buy the company at an arm's length. Since then, I've paid way too much. I think 3x too much what we buy today. But that whole process of seeing parents have a lifestyle business was around $700,000 in revenue when I entered the picture back 2017, and saw an opportunity to scale it up. And so I bought the company, and that's where the light bulb went off that this is a path. We can apply the entrepreneurial lessons of startups and software into a nascent service industry and ultimately do the roll-up we're doing now.
Bought a few companies with Language Network as your platform, correct? Like, how many acquisitions have you done?
Great question. So 4 acquisitions, and I would say Language Network was not a platform. We've been building the platform as we go. We bought way too small. Looking back if somebody's looking to buy a business, I would go bigger. I had to take a big pay cut jumping in, roll up my sleeves to make the numbers work. And that was just ignorance starting out. So we've done the 4 acquisitions all along the West Coast of the United States. It's taken us to new geographies. It's expanded us into new verticals. So I'm very large in healthcare and hospitals. And the use case is interpreting. So telehealth, with the pandemic, everything moved online to on-site, to healthcare notices being translated. Another main vertical for us is state and local government. And then the other third vertical is global business. So manufacturing, marketing, online content. So we've built a nice stool, if you will. It's like a third on those industries. In each acquisition, we are able to find a lookalike business and implement the similar systems and create a cookbook, if you will, on how to buy and then add these businesses in.
And how did you finance these transactions, starting with the one from your parents? So like, did you get a loan, or did they seller finance it to you, or how'd you get that done?
Good question. I looked around and didn't know how we would do the deal other than either going to a bank, equity, or some seller finance. And we ended up on equity and seller note. And I'd rather pay them more interest, being family, than a third-party bank. And to mention, I'm one of 5 kids. So in order to keep family peace too, and not have anyone come later on down the road, hey, where's my inheritance? We structured it as this buyout. I bought the company, and that's that. Nobody else was interested. So to answer your question, the first deal that got us going was some equity from me, and then a seller note. The next question that you're going to ask, well, how you do the others? And that was a 7A program, amazing, through the SBA.
Yeah.
And then we've also done some where it's more creative. It was not a bankable deal. So that's a mixture of equity and some sort of seller note, and then a royalty agreement. So when there's customer concentration, we'll structure it as a kind of a commission for X number of years, as long as the client is still with us.
You can't do a royalty on a SBA loan, right? So that was like a different loan.
Separate
that was a different.
deal.
Okay.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
I love it when we don't have an SBA loan, because you have all those tools that you can play with, like royalties and earnouts and more interesting deal structures. So that's cool, man. So is your cap table just you, or have you brought any outside money to help with the equity pieces of these?
Great question. Actually, we're still a family business. My younger sister is involved and wouldn't have it any other way. When I bought Language Network, she had been there 10 years in operations. And so it had tremendous industry knowledge, systems knowledge. And so she's been a minority partner in all of this. So we've kept that family feel, but professionally run and scaled up from 4 people, 700,000 in revenue, and we entered to where we are now. It's like a factor of 10 on the people, and we'll close out the year around 11 to 12 million. Maybe I'm skipping ahead to numbers, but
we're ready. We're ready. Always ready to talk numbers. So
wait, what was the time period? Went from 700K revenue to 11 million revenue over how many years?
2017 to 2024.
That's amazing.
So quick math, 7 years.
Wow.
Are you on the Inc. 5000? Did you apply for that?
Yeah, that's a nice pin to wear. I've missed applying the last few years, but we did a few years back, and our growth qualifies for sure.
Yeah, I would have sure thought you would be that type of growth rate. That's awesome, man. Well, super cool. You took your family's lifestyle 700K business, and now you've got something really cooking here through organic growth and acquisitions. So the language business, after 4 acquisitions and your growth, what's your revenue and EBITDA? Like, let's get a ballpark on those.
Sure. So last year, finished the year around 9.4. with a 19, and that's a SDE number. So, adding back everything, if we were to truly go away. So SDE, seller discretionary earnings. So I think that's about an 18 or 19% margin, bottom line. We're fairly consistent this year as well, even though we've scaled up to 11 to 12, depending on how the back half of this year looks. We'll do about, 18% of that. Whatever that is, I can pull out a calculator if you want.
A little over $2 million potentially.
Yeah.
Very great, man. That's awesome. Any debt on the businesses still from the acquisitions, or how's the debt picture look?
Yeah. So we've retired some debt. We've also taken on some debt. So we've got about $2 million outstanding.
Hey guys, wanted to take a quick break from the show just to tell you about our companies for a second. I'm Patrick Dichter and I own Appletree Business Services. We do quality accounting and tax nationwide. So if you're running a business or looking to buy a business, we'd love to help you out with accounting and tax services. You can find us at appletreebusiness.com. And Clint, tell us about Bison Business.
Yeah, Bison Business is my firm. We do nationwide M&A. So we help people buy and sell companies. Most of our customers have companies in the 1 to 20 million revenue range, profitable businesses. So if you've got one and you're ready to get acquired, you can reach out to us at bisonbusiness.com for a complimentary valuation. We can get you to market and get you sold. If you're a listener that's a buyer that wants to buy a company that size, make sure you're on our email list because we'll send you out deals first before they hit the market anywhere else. But we'd love to serve you anytime you're thinking of acquiring or selling your business. We want to be your first stop at Bison Business.
Awesome. Now back to the show.
So, my just rough back of the napkin here, Jordan, is, I'm really thinking that you and your sis have probably a $10 million asset here with, if you only have $2 million of debt on it, you could probably net out pre-tax $8 million if you were to run a process and find someone else that wanted to take the baton from here. Like you took it from $700K to where it is now, and someone else might want to take it 10X, into major middle market player, and sell upstream to private equity one day or something like that. Like, is that enough where it starts getting tempting? Where, it sounds like you got an immigrant parent that was doing this to get by, and you got fired from a job and bought this thing, not too long ago. And for most people, that's life-changing money. That's with, you're a young guy. How old are you?
36.
36. So, you could be sitting here at 36, multimillionaire, all the options in the world, and go into, a different, passion project or something like that. Is it starting to get to a place where that gets, that thought crosses your mind?
Yeah, absolutely. The bipolar attitude of could I sell or could I keep running it? I try and stay in the middle on that fence. But to be honest with you, the number, like, absolutely amazing and grateful to be in this position. It wasn't the main motivation going in, nor is it my main driver going forward. And so I weighed a number with, like, am I having fun? Am I using my skill set? Do I have more to give here? And as we grow, I may get to the point where I need to be fired again. And I'm totally open to that. But right now, I feel like in a sweet spot professionally to keep pouring into this and compounding it. And I look around, like, if you were to take some sort of cash out, where the heck would you put it? I'm just going to put it and get 5% right now. Maybe I'll put it in the stock market. Maybe you buy some real estate and do something there. But I look at the alternatives. And I think the best compounding vehicle right now is what I do day to day is the roll up.
Yeah, you made a good point that I haven't really talked about on this show much, but you said something as like a throwaway comment of just like you're in a sweet spot with, and I think that there's a a real impetus to sell sometimes is when people wake up, and it doesn't have to be at retirement. Sometimes it's middle of your journey. You wake up and realize, I don't think I'm the best person for this job anymore. And I think I should be fired right now. I think the company would be better if I might be limiting the growth, or I might be holding it back. And it sounds like, you can look at yourself in the mirror right now and feel like I'm doing, we're growing, I'm having fun, our culture's healthy, and just by all metrics, I think I'm doing a pretty good job. And I think that I would hire me right now. And like, when you're in that spot, that's a good place to be. You're cruising, right? And I think it's hard for our egos sometimes to wake up one day and realize, because it's not like that forever, and everybody hits kind of their own limitations. And if you're not always learning and evolving, you're going to hit it hard at some point. There's very few people that have been the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world that, just started it in college and have taken it to the moon and not had to let someone else step in as CEO. Like, that's extremely rare. So it sounds like you're feeling it right now. Like you're moving in that. And if that's the case, and you've been growing so quickly, like, paint a picture of 5 years from now. Like, what are your goals mid-range? Like where do you think you can take this company in the next 3 to 5 years?
5 years, we're 50 million. The next 12, 18 months, we're mid 20 something, 24, 25 million. Excited by that. Our team's excited by that. I'd like to talk about the vision with our group. So I found a sweet spot. If somewhere along there I reevaluate that I'm not the guy, that's okay. We're just building sandcastles, really. It's these businesses. I'm trying to be all in, but also not at the same time. And so that metaphor reminds me of, like, the tide will come in at one point and knock it all down, and it goes back to being sand. But for now, we're building a nice little sandcastle, and 50 million.
You
global.
said that just so like you knew the number and confident, and you're just
I was
like,
about to say that.
we're going to hit 50. Like, I've never been more sure of it in my life, just the way I felt it from you. Like, is that the, the North Star that you guys have had, or you just see
Sell
it?
me on it, Jordan. How are you so confident? Because I was about to say the same thing. You answered so quickly, so confidently there. Like, what? I mean, that's a huge jump. That's a huge jump from where you're at. Like, what gives you that confidence to think you'll be at 50 million in 5 years?
Sure. I mean, it's a couple of things. One, it's, I'm the guy for a reason. I got to have the vision and the conviction. So to even have that as a possibility, somebody's got to have the vision. A lot of small companies are small for a reason. It gets to a place where it's good enough. Let's put it in cruise control. Owners enjoy it. Like, for me, that's not exciting. Let's use our skill set and grow. And I tell my team, I want us to go far. And that's a journey best done with other people. If I wanted to go fast, I'd go alone, or would keep it lean, and I'd milk the sink for cash flow. So as a fundamental, like, starting point, that's my North Star. That's what excites me. So it starts with the vision and conviction. Then, am I so crazy and disconnected with reality is the next question. And so when you look at our industry, where are we playing in that sandbox, building the sandcastle, is we're in an expanding industry. So language services is growing double digits year over year. Sure, there's AI and sure, there's tech, but there's always been. It's usually expanded the pie and not contracted. It's a highly fragmented industry. So how do we get to 50 million? It's acquisitive, so more acquisitions, and it's organic growth. We'll try and grow around 25 to 35% organically year over year, so even without acquisition. And there's enough of these opportunities in our industry to feel like we can get to 50 with that combo of doing a few acquisitions here, 4 to 5 million revenue jumps at a time. And I believe in our team too. Like, it's a service business and they're hard to scale, like incredibly hard. It's like squeezing jello. But the acquisition, you pick up the clients and you pick up the capabilities at the same time. And that makes it a lot easier. I think you've had some folks on here like, was it Brian, who's doing the Midas franchise acquisition. And so you pick up a new territory, a new revenue stream. And so that's how I see the path to 50 million.
I
Do you
mean,
think
that's
you're
if there's Jordan stock, like sign me up. But
yeah? Can we buy? Can we invest? Can we get some stock?
so can we slow down and hit this acquisition strategy for a second? So I'd love for Clint to maybe just retell the whale shark analogy, and then we'll talk about like sourcing and what the multiples look like. But
Yeah, and before I do that, when you're at 50 million, do you think the EBITDA margin can hold kind of where it is, or do you think it'll be thinner at that point?
Great question. It depends on what verticals we're in.
Yeah.
Language services touches every industry, and some of them will have different services, have different margins. So if I'm just expanding what we have into bigger contracts, it'll probably compress a little. But at the same time, I think we can be more efficient with our software and tools. So that 15 to 20% feels very sustainable, even at that size and scale. 15 to 20% bottom line.
Okay.
I've seen companies in our industry, below 10%. People are just lifestyle, let it run. I've
So
seen
back
people
of the
find,
napkin, that means he's hoping for that 7.5 to 10 million EBITDA when he hits that 50 million, at which he's dead confident is 5 years from now. And I love it. So the whale shark analogy Patrick wanted me to say was, I've been trying to coin this phrase into SMB vernacular, but the Shark Tank popularized the shark entrepreneur. And I think the financials industry popularized the whale, which is like the big deep pocket investor. I have noticed invading the small business space are people that don't think like your parents did, like my parents did, because I had the family business as well that was a lifestyle business. And now I'm thinking differently with my generation. My brother and I are partners on it. So there's some commonalities in our stories here. But he's the one that's running the family business, but I'm the minority partner on it. But we want to professionalize it, scale it, grow it, do acquisitions. Whereas our parents' generation, it was just more like, this is how we make a living doing this thing, And the whale shark mentality just means you kind of move through the water and think like an investor. You know what your business is worth. You want to run it professionally. You want to run good books. You want to leverage financial tools like your SBA 7A loans, your seller financing, your royalty deals you're doing to kind of supercharge growth via leverage to create huge returns and use small business as a real wealth building vehicle. But you're still a shark because you're in the trenches operating these companies, right? Like you are the CEO, you are hands-on. You're not just writing checks and collecting money from these deals. So you're part investor, part operator. And a whale shark in nature is the perfect example because their DNA, like they're officially a shark. Like they're a shark and you're a shark and I'm a shark, but they kind of behave like a whale, right? Like they swim through the water at a chill pace, they grow to prolific sizes by just behaving more whale-like in nature, even though they're a shark, And I think it's just nature gave us a perfect example for what I'm seeing go on in the lower middle market. There's these kind of like ordinary people that came from entrepreneurial, maybe shark parents that have picked up some of these financial tools and vision, and they're starting to behave more whale-like, and they're building tremendous wealth in a short period of time. And I mean, your mom ran this business since the 80s, right?
Yep, that's right.
And I bet you she worked as hard as you did, maybe harder, right? So it's not just hard work. Like When your
Yeah.
mom owned it, it wasn't worth that much money. God bless her. She did a great job and built a nice business that took care of her and took care of your family. So I'm not trying to denigrate her in any way whatsoever. She did awesome. But like in a very short period of time, much shorter than when she owned it, you've made this enterprise value tremendously larger. And that's because whale shark versus shark. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And people like to swim with whale sharks.
Yeah.
So they're not so scary.
They're not so scary. They're funner. They're fun to be around. So I love that analogy. I've built my whole business around trying to be basically like a whale shark whisperer. Like, they're my ideal clients. I love those types of people because for me, selling businesses, I can sell. If I get a relationship with you, who I would consider a whale shark, like I view you as a guy I could sell 5 businesses to, right? So you're a repeat client. You're not just a one-time transaction. And so we can form a relationship and I can help you grow your empire. And that helps me as a service provider in this space with that repeat engagement potential. So that's why I like that analogy. And I like that as the ideal customer for who I work with. But the point being is that it's a powerful example and you're walking it out in real life right now. So fast forward 5 years from now, going back to the theme of this show, I have coffee with you and I say, Jordan, how's it going? And you say, Clint, it's going great. You remember on the show, I told you I was going to hit 50 million. I just hit it. And yeah, we ran about 9 million in EBITDA. We're crushing it on a trailing 12 months run rate. And I have been talking to some buyers in private equity. And I'm like, you know what? I think there's some players that would buy you for, man, like maybe 80 million bucks or something like that. I don't know what it would be in 5 years, but it could be 50 to 100 million somewhere, no joke. Like, you could be in that ballpark. At that point,
Yeah.
You're what, 40, 41 years old. Surely I can get you that wheelbarrow full of money and and you'll take that, right? Or are you still going to say, you know what? I'm not ready. I'm 41. I want to keep taking this thing forward. Like, what do you think? I know it's hard to say because you're not in those shoes yet, but like, if we had that conversation 5 years from now, what do you think your reaction would be?
I think there would be openness to it. Like I was saying, the conviction, the vision I share, but also the openness to a different path is really important. And at that point, we'll see if I'm the guy. I might have had to deal with more people problems and headaches in between now and there. And other things are calling me in life. So I always remain open to it. Right now, not so much, but those numbers start to paint a very different reality for the rest of your life and those around me. But at the same time, in the nature of the name of your show, Inspired or Acquired, I'd want to be acquired and inspired to do so, and have the right, vision and fit with the acquiring party. The challenge with private equity, which we have a very juicy stake in industry and market, is the vision. And it's hard to just be a spreadsheet jockey and buy something and then turn it in 3 to 5 years. So there are some big private equity buyers I know that would buy us. But it got to be the right one. So that's an equal part of that equation, that coffee we're having, Clint.
Yeah. How does your sister factor into this? I wanted to, just because I've got a sibling I'm going into business with and we want to empire build, like, she's been there longer than you, right? That she was working for the company while you were at your other job and was there 10 years longer than you said?
Yeah, that's right. Younger sister by 3 years. We've practiced our whole lives for this, doing lemonade stand or donuts or door-to-door cookie sales. And we've followed those roles. Usually I was the instigator or the visionary with the idea, and she was in there to help execute and operate. And we still have that split, that yin and yang. So that's been really good. And there's deep trust. which is also, I think, a key to our success, is to partner with somebody that you just implicitly have that trust to build from.
So the whole time since 18, have you had a pretty good relationship, like gotten along really well?
Yeah, no, I mean, we're friends. We're not best friends, but no hot and cold seasons. Appetite for risk, is always interesting with partners, of who's got to go for the moon and who's got to we got a good thing going. So fortunately, we've been in good pace, good step with the risks we want to take and the growth we want to achieve.
The org now is 42 people. Do you have like a COO and a CFO, or what's kind of the leadership team look like?
Sure. So we've got functional leadership in our different departments. So every operations service has the director level. We don't have a COO yet. So it's me and the CFO and our division leaders. That org chart looks very different, as I mentioned, as we scale up. And my role changes every 12 months. I think that's the key to get where I want to go. Is I have to keep evolving. You said I'm a whale shark, but I don't see myself that way. I feel like a tadpole that I got to evolve to the next stage of whatever. So yeah, it's pretty flat org right now. A really cool opportunity for our team to grow, and there'll be tremendous career path and earning for everybody. That lights me up too. That's why I feel inspired as well.
Part of that, bringing up your sister too, is thinking about, I get excited about almost like changing my family members' lives more than my own sometimes. I don't know. I just think that's really cool. And I imagine that's a factor, if that big opportunity comes along for a blockbuster number exit. I mean, you surely think about the impact on your sister, right? And does she have kids? Is that setting them up for, for being able to do things y'all couldn't do? And, I don't know. Does that kind of thinking factor in to that 5 years from now?
Of course it does. It's, I think also a key to our success is that I had that drive buying the business from my parents and seeing them set up well, and betting on myself, and having my sister come along too and benefit from our journey. So absolutely, is it a burden or a stress? Not so much. Is it like light a fire and give me deep meaning? Absolutely. I'm excited about it. And I've got nephews on that side too. So there's a ripple effect for sure.
That's awesome. Well, I hope this is another lesson for our listeners here. Anytime you bring up doing business with family on the internet, on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, there's a chorus of people that are like, don't do it. Never get into business with family. That's a bad idea. And this hasn't been a bad idea for you. It sounds like you guys are lucky to have each other. You got different risk tolerances. You got different complementary skill sets. You got high trust, high care for each other. And it makes it a lot harder to just throw in the towel on a hard day, right? Because you're in it together and you're dependent on each other. And so, it can be done well. But I also think you got to know, something I think that you're doing right. And correct me if I'm wrong here, because we didn't talk about this, but sounds like there's a clear one of you's in charge situation, and there's a real org chart, and there's division of responsibilities, and you probably have good documentation of at the corporate level. Your operating agreement, your buy-sell agreement. You have all those in place, it sounds like, and you're cognizant of that, the importance of that stuff. Is that true?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head that you need to run professionally. Put it in writing, paper it up. I think that was the reason that this has been successful, is getting outside counsel, getting an operating agreement in place. Anytime we make decisions, like having minutes and notes and what's agreed on, the last thing we need is somebody to expect something just because we're family. So it's not an evolution everyone can make. The thing with family is we expect people to play the roles and the family dynamic, and those translate over to business. So the best part of that is the trust, if you had that. But the worst part is if you don't now put on your business hat and run it and treat each other that way. Like, we're family and we're partners. And I attribute Greg Crabtree. I don't know if you guys are listened to his talk or read one of his books. Yeah, he does a good job of just laying it out, no nonsense. Pay people for what they do, not because you're family and entitled. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, great book.
I had his book on my desk.
Yeah,
phenomenal book.
That's what we took away from it too, was that this is a living, breathing entity, and nobody's entitled to anything. We get paid for the value we put into it, not what we own. And it's always a reminder as we grow too. And I'm sure as we scale up to 50 million, we want to keep the cap table clean and not make it murky with bringing in more partners, because it just changes dynamics. And right now we got a good thing. But family business, yeah, Clint, the saying, don't do it. For most situations, don't. Absolutely. I don't want to get on here saying we have it all figured out. We're just committed to figuring it out when it sucks or when it's hard.
Yeah. I think you're nailing it, man. So yeah, if you're going to do it right, like paper it up right, divide responsibility, know who's in charge, treat it professionally. I've seen it done both ways, the way Jordan's doing it the right way, and I've seen it done the wrong way. The wrong way gets really ugly. My mom and her brothers were all equal partners in our family business, and they didn't have a buy-sell agreement. They didn't have a good operating agreement. They didn't have an org chart. It was like they were all three in charge. It was my grandfather was the clear leader, and when he died, he left it to the three of them equally, and they just tried to run it equally. And that led to countless friction. And because they didn't have any mechanisms to break ties or anything like that, it just became Cold War. Anytime they disagreed on something big, it just became, they stopped talking to each other, got passive aggressive, got upset, and it was just whoever, I don't know, it was just toxic, unhealthy until they broke that, whatever they were disagreeing about. But that's no way to run a business. Like, you have to have a process, just like you would in any other business. You wouldn't run a business with non-family members like that. So you shouldn't do that with family members. So,
yeah, agreed.
Great advice there, Jordan. I appreciate your example there.
One thing, Patrick, I'm curious if you see this on people's, P&L is like a budget for therapy. Especially family business or any partnership, there should be some sort of operating expense for a good therapist along the way.
Yeah, I think, a therapist, a business coach can go a long way to save those family relationships, no doubt.
Mm-hmm. Is that tax deductible?
Yeah. Ordinary and necessary. This has been awesome, man. It's crazy to see how quickly you've grown it. And it's definitely an industry that just wasn't on my radar at all. But to hear that it's bigger than the music industry really puts it in perspective. So we're excited to keep cheering for you. We'll be watching you hit 50, whether that's in 5 years or, 4, who knows. I have no doubt you'll do it.
It could take longer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if people want to reach out with you, connect with you, where's the best place that they can do that?
Chocolate or vanilla. You can meet me on LinkedIn, Jordan Evans, or you can pick Twitter or formerly known as Twitter X. It's Jordan P. Evans.
Awesome. We'll link to that in the show notes, and feel free to reach out to him there. And this has been really fun and inspiring. So, Jordan, thank you for coming on.
Thanks, guys, for having me and putting out this content.
Yeah.
Yeah, really appreciate you sharing the real numbers and real talk about business with you and your family. Really applaud you, your mom, your sister, everything that you've all built as a family. It's just a super inspiring story. And I'm ready to say, Jordan's inspired, but open to being acquired, but not right now. Like he's got more growth to do. He's cruising, but I wouldn't be surprised if 5 years from now, something big could change, and that'll be exciting to see what happens there. So stay in touch, man, and really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Clint. Thanks, Patrick.
Talk to you soon.